Here is just a little something to get you started. That was the line my mother Heather used as she slid the slim cream-colored envelope across the glass table. We were sitting in the garden of my parents' estate in Savannah, the humidity clinging to my skin like a damp towel. The air smelled of jasmine and expensive perfume, a stark contrast to the scent of burnt sugar and yeast that clung to my own clothes. I reached for the envelope, my heart doing a hopeful little flutter against my ribs. This was the $22,500 my grandmother Alina had promised me, the startup capital for my bakery, the money that would finally get me out of the commercial kitchen where I was just another pair of hands and into a space that was mine. Go on, open it, my father, David urged, swirling his whiskey. He looked bored like this was just another item on a checklist. I tore the flap. Inside there was no check, no bank transfer details, just a plastic card, a gift card to a generic grocery chain. I flipped it over. The balance was written in Sharpie on the back. $250, I looked up, my mother was smiling. That tight practice smile she used for charity galas. My sister Alyssa was already holding up her phone, the ring light reflecting in her eyes. Smile, Chloe, unboxing time, she chirped. I did not smile. I looked at the card, then at my parents. The insult was so precise, so absolute, it did not even hurt, it just clarified things. $250, I said, my voice flat. Well, groceries are expensive these days, my mother said, waving a hand. We thought it would be practical. Practical, they stole $22,000 and gave me a week's worth of groceries. Before we watch this family get exactly what they deserve, drop a comment and let me know where you are listening from and what time it is for you right now. I would love to know who is part of our community. I did not scream. I did not flip the table or throw the gift card into the koi pond. I did not give them the satisfaction of a reaction they could later describe as hysterical to their friends. I simply stood up, tucked the plastic card into my apron pocket and walked out of the garden. Chloe, do not be dramatic, my mother called after me, her voice shrill with annoyance rather than concern. We are having cake. I kept walking through the wrought iron gate, down the long driveway lined with manicured oaks and into my beat-up sedan. I did not go home to cry. I went to work. 20 minutes later, the smell of jasmine and expensive wine was replaced by the thick, heavy scent of yeast and industrial grease. The commercial bakery where I worked the graveyard shift was a concrete box on the edge of town, devoid of charm but full of noise. I clocked in. I tied my apron tight. And I went to war with 400 lb of dough. The physical labor was grounding. It always was. There is no room for self-pity when you are hauling 50 lb sacks of flour or pulling trays from a 400 degrees oven. The heat here was not the humid, languid heat of my parents' garden. It was a dry, searing heat that dried out your skin and cracked your lips. As I needed, my mind finally allowed itself to process the logic of what had just happened. And that is what it was. Logic, twisted, sick logic. For years I had wondered why they treated us so differently. Why Alyssa got the car, the trips, the brand investments, while I got lectures on thriftiness and hard work. I used to think they just loved her more. But as I slammed the dough onto the stainless steel table, I realized it was more calculated than that. They did not hate me. They had simply run a cost-benefit analysis. They looked at Alyssa, fragile, vain, incapable of holding down a job for more than a month, and decided she was a liability that required constant funding to maintain the family image. If they did not prop her up, she would fail and her failure would reflect poorly on them. Then they looked at me. They saw the burns on my forearms from the ovens. They saw me working double shifts without complaining. They saw me saving every penny, driving a car with a taped-up window and never asking for help. They did not see a daughter who deserved a reward. They saw a daughter who could survive a deficit. They stole my money not because they thought I did not earn it, but because they knew I was strong enough to rebuild without it. My resilience had not earned their respect. It had simply given them permission to rob me. They punished me for my competence. I looked down at my hands, dusted white with flour, the knuckles red and swollen. I thought about the $22,500. That was not just money, it was freedom. It was the lease on the storefront downtown. It was the convection oven I had bookmarked for 3 years. It was my exit strategy, and they had taken it to buy. And what I did not know yet, I did not cry that night. Crying implies you are sad, and I was not sad. I was recalibrating. I had been playing a game where I thought the rules were about love and merit. Now I knew the rules were about leverage and extraction. The oven timer buzzed, a harsh mechanical sound that echoed off the tile walls. I pulled the bread out the heat, blasting me in the face. I was done being the strong one. If they wanted to see what happened when the reliable daughter stopped holding up the ceiling, they were about to find out. $22,500. To my parents, that sum was a renovation budget for the guest bathroom or a deposit on a luxury sedan. It was disposable, fluid, just another line item in the maintenance of their lifestyle. To me, that number was a ghost. It was the specific, calculated value of my grandfather's 1967 Mustang Fastback. Grandad did not have much liquidity, but he had that car. He spent 30 years restoring it, grease under his fingernails, humming old jazz tunes in the garage. I was the only one who sat with him. Alyssa complained about the smell of oil. I loved it. I loved watching something broken become whole through sheer stubborn effort. When he died, he left specific instructions for Grandma Alina. The car was to be sold, and the proceeds were to go to the one with the talent. He did not name me explicitly in the will because he knew my parents would contest it, claiming Alyssa's ability to take selfies was also a talent. But he told Grandma, and Grandma told me. He wanted you to have your own shop, Chloe. She had said, her eyes fierce behind her wire-rimmed glasses. He watched you bake. He knew you were the only one in this family who was not afraid to get your hands dirty. This money is your seed. That was 3 years ago. For 3 years I treated that promise like a sacred vow. I did not just wait for the money. I matched it with my own sweat equity. I moved into a studio apartment that was essentially a converted closet above a dive bar. The rent was cheap because the bass from the jukebox rattled my teeth until 2:00 in the morning. I did not buy new clothes. I wore my non-slip work shoes until the soles flapped open, and then I duct taped them back together because a new pair cost $80, and $80 was a used mixer or 500 business cards. I ate staff meals at the bakery or expired pastries that were destined for the dumpster. I walked 3 miles to work to save on gas. I turned my life into a math problem where the only variable that mattered was the savings account balance. While I was living on the edge of poverty to honor my grandfather's gift, my sister was building her brand. Alyssa lived in the pool house rent-free. My parents paid for her professional lighting ring, her subscription services, her content trips to Nashville and Miami. They called it investing in her future. I watched her unbox PR packages I knew my parents had secretly paid for just to make her look successful online. I never complained. I thought we were just on different paths. I was the tortoise, she was the hare. I thought the finish line was fixed. I thought the money was safe in Grandma's trust, waiting for the moment I signed a lease. But Grandma had been traveling for the last 6 months, disconnected from the daily drama. She had trusted my father, her own son, to disperse the funds when the time was right. She trusted him to be a father. She did not know that to David and Heather, money did not belong to the person who earned it or the person it was left to. It belonged to the person who needed to maintain appearances. They did not just steal $22,000 from me. They stole the hours I spent scrubbing burnt pans. They stole the sleep I sacrificed. They stole the last tangible piece of my grandfather's love and converted it into what? I pictured the gift card again, $250. They had looked at my grandfather's legacy, looked at my 3 years of grinding poverty and decided it was worth a week of groceries. They had not just robbed me, they had erased me. They had decided that my dream was less important than whatever shiny vapid thing they had purchased with that money. And that was the mistake. Because you can steal money from a rich person and they will be angry, but if you steal survival from a starving person you do not get anger. You get war. I did not hear from my parents for 2 days. I expected anger, maybe a drunken voicemail from my dad, but there was only silence. And then on the 3rd day the escalation began. It started with a notification on my phone. Alyssa had tagged me in a post. I opened Instagram, wiping flour from my screen. The photo was a sneak peek of her upcoming trip, a flat lay of her passport, a pair of sunglasses, and a screenshot of her itinerary. First class to Paris, baby rebranding, new era blessed. But it was the caption that made my stomach turn. So grateful to my amazing parents for always investing in my dreams. They know that sometimes you have to spend money to make money. Can't wait to show you all the new content. Big things coming, investing in her dreams with my money, with my sweat, with my grandfather's legacy. I scrolled down. My mother had commented, "You deserve it, sweetie. You work so hard on your image. We're just happy to support the family business." The family business. I felt a cold, hard knot form in my throat. To them, Alyssa's Instagram account was the family business. Her follow account was their social currency. Her lifestyle was the only product they cared about selling. My bakery, my actual business with actual revenue and actual customers, that was just a hobby. A dirty, sweaty little hobby that did not look good in photos. Then came the text from my mother. "Chloe, we need you to bake a cake for Alyssa's send-off party tomorrow night. Something elegant, maybe 3 tiers. We want it to look professional for the photos. We can pay you an exposure on her page. Exposure. They stole $22,000 from me and now they wanted free labor. They wanted me to bake the cake for the party, celebrating the trip they bought with my stolen money. It was breathtaking. It was a level of delusion so complete it was almost impressive. I looked around the commercial kitchen. The stainless steel surfaces were cold and hard. The air was thick with the smell of work. This was my reality. And they were living in a fantasy world funded by my pain. I realized then that this was not just about greed, it was about fear. Heather and David were not just selfish. They were terrified. They were terrified of being irrelevant. They were terrified of being ordinary. They used money, my money, to buy a costume of success because without it, they were just two middle-aged people with a mountain of debt and a daughter who had never worked a day in her life. They needed Alyssa to be famous so they could feel important. They needed me to be the servant so they could feel powerful. The phantom power of the empty wallet. They were spending money they did not have to impress people. They did not like and they were using my future as the collateral. I did not reply to the text. I did not comment on the post. Instead, I opened my laptop. I pulled up the family trust documents Grandma Elena had given me access to years ago just in case. I had never looked at them closely before. I trusted my father. But trust is a luxury I could not afford anymore. I started digging and what I found was not just negligence. It was a paper trail of desperation. Grandma Elena arrived Savannah at 4 a.m. on a Tuesday. She did not go to the house. She did not call my parents. I was pulling a tray of croissants from the oven when the back door opened. The heavy steel door creaked, letting in a sliver of the humid pre-dawn air before slamming shut. I turned, expecting a delivery driver or the morning shift manager. Instead, I saw my grandmother standing there in a tailored wool coat that was entirely too warm for Georgia, clutching a leather briefcase like a weapon. "Grandma," I wiped my hands on my apron, leaving streaks of flour. "What are you doing here? Is everything okay?" She did not answer immediately. Her sharp blue eyes scanned the room, taking in the industrial mixers, the concrete floors, the burn on my forearm that was still healing. She looked at the dark circles under my eyes and the way I leaned against the counter to take the weight off my feet. "You look tired, Chloe," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "It is the night shift, Grandma. Everyone looks tired." She walked to me, her heels clicking on the hard floor. She reached out and touched the burn on my arm, her fingers cool and dry. "I tried to call you yesterday," she said. "Your phone was off. I was sleeping. I work nights, remember? I called your father." She continued, ignoring my explanation. "He told me you were busy setting up your new shop. He said you were so overwhelmed with contractors and permits that you did not have time to talk." I froze. The lie was so blatant, so easily disproven it took my breath away. He said that he did. He said the $22,500 was already spent on equipment. He said you were thriving. She looked around the bleak, windowless room. "This does not look like thriving, Chloe. This looks like survival." I pulled the gift card from my pocket. I had kept it there for 3 days, a talisman of my rage. "They did not give me the money, Grandma." I held out the card. The plastic felt heavy in my hand. "They gave me this, a $250 gift card to a grocery store." Elena took the card. She stared at it for a long time. She flipped it over, reading the balance written in Sharpie. Her face did not change, but the air around her seemed to drop 10 degrees. $250, she repeated. "They said groceries were expensive." She looked up at me, and for the first time I saw something dangerous in her eyes. It was not anger. It was calculation. It was the look of a woman who had survived boardrooms and market crashes and buried a husband she loved more than life itself. "Did they say why?" she asked. "They said they reallocated the funds to support the family business, Alyssa's Instagram account." Elena let out a short, sharp laugh. It was not a happy sound. It was the sound of a guillotine blade dropping. "I see," she said. She placed the gift card on the stainless steel table. Then she opened her briefcase. Inside was a ledger, an old-fashioned leather-bound accounting book. She flipped it open to a marked page. "I did not just send them a check, Chloe," she said, tapping the page. "I required documentation. Your father sent me an invoice last week. An invoice for $22,500 for a commercial convection oven and a 6-month lease deposit." She pulled a folded piece of paper from the book and smoothed it out on the flour-dusted table. It was an invoice. It had the logo of a restaurant supply company I recognized. It listed the equipment and at the bottom it had a signature. "My signature? Is this your signature?" she asked. I looked at the scroll. It was shaky, a little too looped, trying too hard to look like mine. "No," I whispered, "I never sign this." I did not think so. She closed the ledger with a snap that echoed through the quiet bakery. "Get your things, Chloe," she said. "Your shift is over. I can't leave. The sourdough needs to proof. Let it rise or let it rot." It does not matter, she said, turning toward the door. We have a meeting to attend. With who? With the people who think they can forge my granddaughter's name and steal my husband's legacy. They are about to find out they are dealing with the bank and the bank is foreclosing. Grandma Elena did not say another word on the drive to my parents' house. She sat in the passenger seat of my beat-up sedan, her briefcase on her lap, staring straight ahead. I drove in silence, the early morning sun just starting to burn through the savannah fog. My stomach was a nod of anxiety, but Grandma's presence was a steel rod in my spine. We pulled up to the gate just as my father was loading suitcases into the trunk of their leased SUV. Alyssa was standing by the door in a travel outfit that probably cost more than my car posing. While my mother took photos, "One more, sweetie, look excited, Paris awaits." My mother chirped. I parked behind the SUV, blocking them in. My father looked up annoyed. "Chloe, what are you doing here? We have to leave for the airport inn." He stopped when he saw Grandma Elena step out of the car. The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might faint. "Hello, David," Grandma said. Her voice was calm, conversational, which was infinitely more terrifying than if she had been screaming. My mother lowered her phone. "Elena, what a surprise. We were just heading out on a little trip." "I know," Grandma said. "Paris, first class, 4 seasons." George v. Alyssa beamed, oblivious to the tension. "Yes, it is for my rebranding. Did you come to see us off?" "No," Grandma said. She walked past them up the steps and into the house. "I came to audit the books inside now." We gathered in the dining room, the same room where 3 days ago they had handed me a gift card and laughed. Grandma sat at the head of the table. She did not ask anyone to sit. She opened her briefcase and took out the ledger, the forged invoice, and the $250 gift card. She placed them in a neat row on the mahogany table. "David," she said, looking at my father, "would you like to explain why I received an invoice for a commercial convection oven signed by Chloe when K.H. Lowe tells me she received a grocery store gift card?" My father opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He looked at my mother. My mother looked at the floor. "It was a misunderstanding." My father finally stammered. "We borrowed the funds temporarily, just to get Alyssa launched. We were going to pay it back." "With what money?" Grandma asked. "Your credit cards are maxed out. You have a second mortgage on this house and you just spent $22,000 on a vacation you cannot afford." Alyssa gasped. "We are not broke, we are investing. You are destitute." Grandma corrected her, her voice cutting like glass. "You are broke, David. You have been broke for 5 years. You have been using my money and K.H. Lowe's inheritance to play dress up." She picked up the forged invoice. "This," she said, holding it up, "is fraud. Forgery, it is a felony. I could call the police right now and have you arrested before you even get to the airport." My mother started to cry. "Ilana, please, we just wanted the girls to have the best. We did not want people to talk." "People?" Grandma asked. "You stole from your own daughter so people would not know you failed. You sacrificed K.H. Lowe's future for Alyssa's vanity." She stood up. The paper tiger was crumbling before my eyes. My parents were not powerful authority figures. They were scared, pathetic children who had built a castle out of lies. "I am not going to call the police," Grandma said, "because that would embarrass Chloe." She pulled a document from her briefcase. "I hold the deed to this house. I bought it when you defaulted 3 years ago. Remember, I let you stay here rent-free because you are my son, but that arrangement ends today." She slid the document across the table. It was an eviction notice. "You have 30 days to vacate. I am selling the property. The proceeds will go into a trust for Chloe to replace what you stole and then some." 30 days, my father whispered. "Where will we go?" "I suggest you find a rental you can actually afford," Grandma said. "Maybe a 2-bedroom apartment. You will have to downsize." She turned to Alyssa. "And you, the trip is cancelled." "What?" Alyssa shrieked. "I already posted about it. My followers are expecting content." "Then post a retraction." Grandma said coldly. "Tell them your sponsors pulled out because I just cancelled the credit cards. All of them." She looked at me. "Chloe, let us go. We have a bakery to open." I looked at my parents one last time. They sat slumped in their chairs, surrounded by their packed suitcases, the illusion of their perfect life shattered on the dining room table. "I really needed that oven," I said quietly. Then I turned and walked out, leaving them in the ruins of their own making. The fallout was swift and absolute. Within a month, the estate in Savannah was listed for sale. My parents moved into a beige 2-bedroom apartment near the airport. It was clean and perfectly functional, but to them it was a prison cell. They had lost their audience, and without an audience their performance fell apart. Alyssa went quiet online for 2 weeks. When she returned, she wasn't posting from Paris. She was posting from the break room of a high-end clothing boutique where she had taken a job as a sales associate. She tried to spin it as a humble new chapter, but the desperation was visible in every hashtag. She was finally working for her own money, and I suspected she hated every second of it, but I did not have much time to think about them. I was too busy. 3 months after the showdown in the dining room, I stood in the middle of a small storefront in the historic district. The walls were freshly painted a warm, creamy white. The display cases were gleaming, and in the back, humming with a quiet, powerful energy, was a brand new double-stack commercial convection oven. I ran my hand along the stainless steel door. It was still warm from the morning test batch. The air smelled of cinnamon butter and caramelized sugar, the scent of my grandfather's legacy finally taking root. "It suits you, Grandma," Elena said from the doorway. She was leaning on her cane, looking around the shop with a critical but pleased eye. "It feels real," I said. "Finally, it is real," she replied, "because you built it. The money was just the seed, Chloe. You were the soil and the sun." I walked over to the counter where the first tray of pastries was cooling. I picked up a croissant, perfect and golden, its layers distinct and crisp. I thought about the years of saving the burnt arms, the nights spent sleeping above a dive bar. I thought about the family tree I had pruned to get here. It hurt to cut them off. It still hurt in a phantom limb sort of way. But looking around at this clean, bright space, I knew the tree was healthier for it. Sometimes loyalty is just a fancy word for masochism. Sometimes you have to let the dead branches fall so the light can reach the rest of you. The oven timer dinged a bright, clear sound that signaled the next batch was ready. I smiled at my grandmother. "Open the sign, Grandma," I said. "We are ready for business." As she flipped the sign in the window to open, I didn't look back at the past. I put on my fresh, clean apron and I went to work. At what point does a family tree need pruning to save the healthy branches? Have you ever had to cut ties to save your own future? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed the story, hit like and subscribe for more story. Share this story. You are not alone. God bless you. Thanks for watching.